of the few houses that I've seen that the kitchen is upstairs. But you look out the kitchen window and it's ground floor, because the back is higher than the front. Interesting house. So, I'm just going to begin because today's a busy day. Our host has a request for a topic. The topic is Anartha Nivritti. Is there anybody here that doesn't know what that means? And I should explain? Okay. There's a Sanskrit term that some of you know. It's Purushartha. Purusha, Artha. There's the word Artha. Purusha means, in this case, a human being. Ultimately, the Purusha is Krishna. But living beings that are imitation Purushas, or Pondraka Purushas. It was Pondraka. Pondraka is found in the 10th canto Bhagavatam, or Krishna book. He lived in South India, and he was a dear friend of the king, and he challenged Krishna. Krishna, you're saying that you're Vishnu, but I'm Vishnu. He pasted on 2 extra arms. I'm Vishnu. So you stop calling yourself Vishnu, or I'll have to destroy you. So he sent a messenger to Dwarka to challenge Krishna. Krishna laughed. He said, you know, he doesn't have to send an army to come destroy him. I'll go there and destroy him. So Krishna went, and with his Sudarsana chakra, he first cut off the extra 2 arms, and then he cut off the talking part of his body from the rest of his body, and a Pondraka. So a Pondraka is a so-called Purusha, so-called Vishnu. So living entities, you find this in Bhagavad Gita, many places, starting with, well, one prominent one is chapter 13. Living entity is called Purusha, but he's imitation Purusha, like Pondraka. Not the real Purusha. The real Purusha is Vishnu. Somebody imitates Vishnu to try to be the enjoyer of Vishnu's prakriti. That's an imitation Purusha. But commonly, in the texts, the living entity is also sometimes called Purusha. So Purusha, Artha. Artha. In that Purushartha is commonly translated as economic development. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that people take up religiosity, dharma, in order to get artha. And normally that's thought of as economic development. It's not literally what it means, any more than Purusha means, the living entity. Artha literally means something wanted. But what do people want? Money! And why do they want money? Kama. Because it buys, supposedly. It doesn't. But, happiness through sense gratification. So it's a pyramid. Dharma is performed by, Krishna says, chapter 2, for the purpose of gaining piety so they can get prosperity, so they can get sense gratification. And then the 4th one is moksha. So dharma, artha, kama, moksha. Those 4 are subheadings of this one, Purushartha. So people take up the Vedas commonly for those four things. And Prabhupada would sometimes say that bhakti is the fifth dimension. That's what he was making reference to. It's beyond liberation. Very interesting. In chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, we were just discussing this yesterday somewhere in New Jersey. Verses 20 through 23, that's in the meditation, Dhyan Yoga. In those verses, Krishna is describing the samadhi, the perfection of meditation, Dhyan, Dharana, Samadhi. That's the eightfold yoga system. The top of that ladder is Samadhi. So Samadhi, Prabhupada explains, read the purport, is beyond Nirvana. So what do Buddhists aspire for? Nirvana. And Prabhupada explains, Nirvana means material cessation. So if you're a Buddhist and you stop material activity that arises from material desire, what's left? Nirvana. And so they translate it, or it's commonly translated as void. Literally, nothingness, the existence of nothing. Because when you stop material existence and you don't know about Atma, you don't know about the spiritual sky, you don't know about Vaikuntha, you don't know about the residence of Vaikuntha and Goloka and Krishna, and you don't know Srimad Bhagavatam because you're a follower of Buddha. He rejected the Vedas. So you don't know about those things. So nirvana means nothingness. But Prabhupada speaks that samadhi is beyond nothingness. Very interesting. It's the activity, it's directly a verse from the Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, begins with a description of the 10 topics of Srimad Bhagavatam. And one of them is liberation. The common word, dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So, according to the Bhagavatam, moksha is defined the same way that Prabhupada explains it in Bhagavad Gita chapter 6, verses 20 through 23. It's beyond material cessation. The language of the Bhagavatam is svarupena vyavastiti. Swarupa means your spiritual form. Svarupena is a particular tense of the term. And vyavastiti, stiti, means you're situated in your activities of your spiritual form. What you do in the spiritual world beyond material activities. The fifth dimension. Beyond dharma, artha, kama, moksha is swarupena vyavastati. That's the Bhagavatam's description of liberation. Very interesting. Just read Prabhupada's purports and read the verses of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam carefully, and you get a really nice picture of what's in the spiritual marketplace and why you should buy ripe apples rather than unripe apples. The ripened fruit of the Vedas is the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Vedas are compared to a desire tree, kalpataru. Because from the Vedas you can get anything. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. And the ripened fruit of that is the fifth dimension. Swarupena vyavastati, the engagement of devotional service in your spiritual form, directly with the spiritual form of Krishna. And people don't know this. Prahlad Maharaj says, people don't know this. They don't know what the goal of life is. Prabhupada quotes this again and again. They just don't know what the goal of life is. And when you tell them what the goal of life is, they're puzzled. Materialists reject it. And impersonalists reject it. And even sincere seekers are puzzled. I had a really fantastic conversation with a college student Wednesday this week, University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, who was a very open-minded, not a rigid, dug-in, inflexible fanatic. He was a open-minded studier of and follower of Buddhism, and he was hearing things that he'd never heard before. About Atma and Paramatma, you know, the fifth dimension stuff. He never heard it before. But he explained to me, which is what I was aware of already. He explained it this way, these are from the books that he's read, that this is now speaking nirvana, you know, the fourth dimension, but it's the incomplete perspective of the fourth dimension. It should go to the fifth dimension. That Buddha said, now I don't know if he said this, but the brand of Buddhism that he studies said, the Buddha said, we don't talk about self. We don't talk about God, because nirvachaniya is beyond words. So we don't talk about it. We're going to just take care of our business, which is cessation of material desire. And if you don't talk about God or the soul and the soul's relationship with God and the fifth dimension activities, you're left with this definition by negation thing. And nirvana becomes nothingness. And then there's a means to get there, to, you know, from suffering to nothingness. Prabhupada compares this to banging your head against a wall, and it hurts, you get a headache, and you stop banging your head against the wall. Now, what's positive happiness? Nirvachaniya. You can't talk about that because it's inexplicable. We'll just stop banging your head against the wall. Nirvana. Or liberation by negation of material misery arising from material desire. But where does material desire arise from? It arises from ignorance. Ignorance creates ignorant desire. This is Jiva Goswami. Ignorance is the... Prabhupada said it. I've heard it, I don't know, over 100 times. The root of all suffering is ignorance. Buddha says the root of all suffering is desire. But where does material desire that causes suffering come from? It comes from ignorance. So his idea is anesthetized desire. But desire is natural for the soul. So the problem isn't desire. The problem is ignorance. And then from that ignorant desire, from that ignorant activity, from that suffering. Bondage with karma and guna and the complexities of, you know, taking a wrong turn. Misuse of free will and going away from what our real happiness is proper use of our free will. Intelligent, proper reposing of our desire to love and be loved with Krishna, instead of the rebellious one that leads us into darkness and suffering due to ignorance, the darkness of ignorance. Om ajnana timirandasya gananjana salakaya chakshura militam jena tasmai shri gurave namaha. He was very interested to hear I didn't use this same language, fifth dimension, it's just in relation to the topic I was asked to speak about, which is Anartha Nivritti. So Artha, the conventional sense of Artha, is economic development, or the literal meaning of Artha is something wanted, and you put the prefix A in front of Artha and you get Anartha, something unwanted. And Nivritti means eradication of something unwanted. So it's a stage of bhakti called Anartha Nivritti. That's what I'm supposed to speak about. Anartha Nivritti, eradication of unwanted things. Now again, that unwanted things is with the perspective, or seeing it through the lens of the goal. The goal is not nirvana in the Buddhist sense. The goal is Krishna Prema. And the means to reach the goal is bhakti. And anartha is that which is an obstacle to the bhakti process that prevents us from furthering the bhakti process to reach the goal. So let's do the first. This is Rupa Goswami's teachings. Rupa Goswami teaches that bhakti begins, step one, some preliminary faith. Really simple. Really simple. Preliminary faith says, I don't know what it is, but I want to know what it is. What is that which is a reality that's beyond all the temporary veneer of, the day-to-day stuff? Day-to-day stuff, okay. I have to take care of day-to-day stuff. I don't want to be irresponsible and neglect that. But I know, I have this faith that there's a higher reality. I remember very clearly as a college student. I don't know what it is, but I want to know. That's the first step. Second step, Krishna sees, oh, here's somebody that wants to know. And he sends sadhu, somebody that knows. Or at least somebody that knows somebody that knows. And they carry the message from somebody that knows and say, it's that way. I'm not there yet, but it's that way. You go that way, you can get to that higher reality. There's a Sanskrit term for that. Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. Vartma means path. Pradarshaka. They point the path to that reality. It's that way. I haven't been there, but I know it's that way. Like, how do you get to the nearest gas station or something? You go that way. Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. So, sadhu, sangha, that's number 2 step. Preliminary faith, sadhu sangha, and then comes number 3. You do with sadhus what sadhus do. You do bhajana, kriya. Kriya means activity. Bhajana is explained in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6, the very last purport. Bhaj is the root word of bhakti. Bhaj, spelled differently than the English word, B-H-A-J, bhaj, means practical activity. Bring the senses to sense objects and do something. And specifically do something in service to the source of everything, the Absolute Truth. Engage things that come from the Absolute Truth in service to the source. Like offering back palms of Ganges to the Ganges. Everything comes from some source, and offering whatever back to the source. That's bhajana kriya, with devotion. That's Krishna's last line in Bhagavad Gita. patram pushpam palam toyam yobe bhaktya prayachati. Offer with love and devotion, even something very simple, and Krishna will accept. That's devotional service, bhajana kriya. And then comes the Anartha Nivritti stage. Shraddha, sadhusanga, bhajana kriya, Anartha Nivritti. It's number 4 out of 9. And that's where, in the beginning, middle, or end state, that's where we all are. Even in the very, very beginning, the Anartha Nivritti is taking place. Very, very beginning. Very, very beginning. Somebody takes some prasadam, or somebody passes by Harinam, or somebody takes a book, or somebody sees Rath Yatra festival. The Anartha Nivritti has already begun, because bhakti has already begun. So it's not a bucket, but it's a stage of bhakti that spans quite a bit. So we're all in that area, Anartha Nivritti. And so it's a wonderful topic. Spend a week discussing in a seminar this topic, but I don't have a week. So I'm just going to touch on a few points. But, that's the topic is Anartha Nivritti, eradication of unwanted things within. So here's some do-nots and then some do's. Yama and niyama. Do-nots. Don't make the mistake, that's a common mistake, that persons think, I'm going to do it. I'm going to clean the anarthas from within my heart. And then you make that your project, the doership project. Karta aham iti manyate. That's false ego is, I'm going to do it. Karta aham iti manyate. That's a do not. Rather, the do is you put bhajana kriya in the front, that's the horse, that pulls the cart. The cart is Anartha Nivritti. How can Anartha Nivritti be successful? You put the cart behind the horse and carefully attend to the horse, who will pull the cart. When strength comes from bhakti, and purification comes from bhakti, cheta dharpana marjanam, then with that purification, marjanam, cleansing, that's Anartha Nivritti, or it's progressing. Not over yet, but it's how the progress in the Anartha Nivritti is best made. Always keep the bhajana kriya focus first. Put the horse before the cart. Don't make the mistake of putting it the other way around. It won't go very far. Don't make Anartha Nivritti your religion. Make bhajana kriya your religion, your devotional activity. And then the next is devotional activity, so we're all engaged in different degrees of devotional activity. Then comes this very important and somewhat delicate and somewhat elusive element, a factor of offense. When you're doing devotional activity, you may make some offense. And if you make some offense when engaging in devotional activity, that's one of the sources of anarthas that you then have to eradicate through devotional activity. You follow? Should I say it again? Is the logic clear? Before we engaged in devotional service, we weren't making offenses. Then we started devotional service. There was some cleansing, and there was this, whoa, this sense of very rapid elevation. And then, because we were making some offenses. So what's the solution? Not a solution, don't engage in devotional service, because I might make offenses. It's avoid offenses. Whoa, now there's, they didn't tell me this at the very beginning. They just said, chant, be happy. Now they're saying, chant, and if you really want to be happy, you have to avoid offenses. Well, it's part of chanting in such a way you can be happy. Now, will purification take place even if there's offenses against the name? So it's called namabhas, the 3 stages of chanting. Beginning, intermediate, and advanced. Lower, middle, upper. And the upper is Shuddha. Shuddha Nam. And the bottom is Nam Aparad. And the middle is Namabhas. So most of us are in this Namabhas stage. According to Haridas Thakur, Namabhas is so powerful, the kind of chanting that we're doing is so powerful, it can completely eradicate all sin. But not just, some recent one or some big one or something. Lifetimes, countless numbers of sins, just like putting fuel into a fire. I mean, you can put too much fuel into a fire and you put out the fire, but put fuel in a fire and the fuel burns. Similarly, bhakti has namabhas and bhakti abhas, the shadow of, a reflection of bhakti in the holy name, has such power that it can eradicate unlimited numbers of sins. It can relieve one from implication in the modes of nature and take one to that kind of nirvana, beyond material existence, beyond material contamination. Bhakti has that power, even this Bhakti Abhas. So Haridas Thakur says that's just Bhakti Abhas, or Nam Abhas. Shuddha Nam, this chanting without offense, can carry one to Krishna Prema. That's this 5th dimension. The other one is the 4th dimension. Right? Neutralizing material existence. That's Namabhas and Bhakti Abhas. So we want to strive for Shuddha. And by striving for Shuddha, that's an essential part of getting there. But there's another important element, and that's Krishna's mercy. Because without Krishna's mercy, we won't get there even if we're striving. And that's an essential part of bhakti, is feeling oneself dependent upon Krishna's mercy. So, Anartha Nivritti requires feeling oneself dependent upon Krishna's mercy and making some endeavor. There's a nice verse in chapter 18 of Bhagavad Gita that says there's 5 factors of action. Familiar with that verse? There's the place, there's the senses, the indriyas, the instruments, there's the karta, the doer, there's some endeavor, cheshta, and ultimately there's daiva. Any one of the 5 missing won't have activity. All of the 4 besides the 1 is dependent upon number 5, daiva. Without Krishna's sanction, you can endeavor all your life. Not going to happen. You may have legs, but if he takes away the power of locomotion, You can't walk, etc. You can't perform activity without daiva, the sanction of the Supreme Lord. Not even a blade of grass moves. So we require sanction, anumanta. We require super soul, whose two functions are overseeing and permitting. Bhagavad Gita chapter 13, upadrashta, anumantacha. So, Anartha Nivritti requires recognizing Krishna's blessing is needed. And cheshta, I have to make some endeavor. That the refinement of the endeavor is a bhakti refinement, that is, Krishna should be pleased. Unless we get that in focus, Krishna should be pleased, we can make endeavor that's got a mix to it, like Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. I want to invite people to our home, and I want to prepare a nice meal so that I'll get some recognition. And I'll have some friends, and whatever are the things that are there in our heart that's still on the material side, because we're mixed, just in all honesty. We're not yet Shuddha. So there's a mix. But so, Anartha Nivritti means moving the dial, or directing the compass so that we're headed towards Shuddha, even though we're not there yet. We're cultivating, we're striving, we're endeavoring for Shuddha. And that the Shuddha position is Krishna should be pleased. I'm not there yet, but I want to be there. So I'm cultivating. That's Anartha Nivritti. That's the operative principle on the endeavor side, and expecting Krishna's mercy, because he's merciful. I'm just distracted. But even I'm distracted, Krishna doesn't change Krishna's character. He is merciful. And he's going to reciprocate according to how I am attentive to him. That's another Anartha Nivritti principle from Bhagavad Gita. Yetam mam prapadyante tangs tadaiva bhajamyaham. There's the word bhajami again. Bhajamyaham. As they bhajam Krishna, then, and prapadyante, as they take shelter of me and engage in my service according to how they regard me, I reciprocate. It's proportionate to how much we're actually desiring in the side of Krishna should be pleased, and attempting to reduce over here, my own separate interests, which are arising from ignorance. Because what's separate interest? It's ignorance. But there's still separate interest. Reality is there's still separate interest. We're carrying some baggage. Another important feature of Anartha Nivritti, there's a really nice section, I've studied it somewhat, I'd like to go back and study it again, from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. There's a whole section, like maybe 30 pages, where he explains this Anartha Nivritti process. Very detailed. And one of the parts that he explains is, anarthas are not just from this lifetime. Just like, he gives the comparison, just like in previous lifetime, our good activities and our bad activities, good karma, bad karma, they carry with the soul to this life. So you may prosper in this life or suffer in this life due to sin or piety. Lifetimes, not just the previous one, lifetimes. It's cumulative, carried over many lifetimes. We were born with the package of piety and sin. Similarly, he explains, we're born with many lifetimes worth of anarthas. and anarthas, there's a long explanation, but a short explanation. They arise from offense. There are different categories of offense, but they arise from offense. Longer explanation, but they arise from, so you have to be careful. Even if you don't do devotional service, you can make offense. You do devotional service, you can make offense. So we have to be careful about offense. We have to know what offense is. Just like, many of you drive. Probably most of you drive. And you have to know what the laws are. If you don't know what the laws are, you can be arrested. You have to pay a fine. You may revoke your license. You may do more than that. If you're going to drive, you have to know what the laws are. You have to have a license and follow the laws. And similarly, if you're going to live, what to speak of, live a life in devotion to Krishna, you have to know what offense is and avoid it. And stay in the middle of the road. Follow the laws. Because that's what Dharma is. It's laws given by God. Really simple definition. Religion is laws given by God. A religious person is one who follows the laws given by God. Just like the legislative assembly makes laws, and a law-abiding citizen follows the laws. The criminal doesn't follow the laws, whether they know what the law is or not. Oh, Your Honor, I didn't know that if I drive to the left side of the street, it's in violation of the law. It doesn't matter. You're in violation of the law. Oh, Your Honor, I didn't know that I'm supposed to pay taxes. Or this category of, if you don't know, you should know. If you violate the law, there's degrees of violation of law. Premeditated murder is different than accidental, but it's still murder. There's the law and there's the violation of the law. The Dharma is laws given by God, how we should live our lives in this temporary place. And a religious person follows the laws. But what's the purpose of Dharma? Well, if you're in this Purushartha program, it's so you get punya points, then you can prosper in this life and go to heaven after this life, and maybe aspire for liberation. Maybe. Maybe heaven is good enough. And then after heaven, according to Bhagavad Gita, Shine punya marcha lokam vishanti, come back down again. Like a Ferris wheel, like a child. Just get on the Ferris wheel and go for a ride. And then get off, pay your fee, and then go back on again. The Vedas are meant for more than that. And it's meant more than from the liberation notion of negation. Becoming one with Brahman, or becoming merged with Nirvana, or something. There's this other purpose of the Vedas. So, knowing what that is, following the principles of Dharma for that purpose, is to assist the living entity to get to the purpose. This is Prahlad. Na te vidu svartakatimi Vishnu. Vid means to know. Na te vidu. They do not know. Sva artha. Sva artha. Their own real purpose or gain. Sva artha. He, Vishnu, certainly is Vishnu. They don't know. They don't know. It's either the Ferris wheel or atheism, it doesn't matter, or merging or nirvana. Then some variations on the theme. They don't know. So, fortunately for us, we came across a devotee because there was a desire to know, some preliminary faith, and we said, wow, let me try this out. Bhajana Kriya. Then we move into the Anartha Nivritti stage. So, I was saying, according to Jiva Goswami, anarthas are with us from previous lifetimes. And a functional definition of what anartha is functional. It's different than sin this way. Sin can be eradicated by bhakti. Yes? That's our teaching. Sin and the reaction of sin can be eradicated by bhakti. Functionally, a difference is anartha has the power to block the power of bhakti. Far more serious. A comparison is given by our acharyas consistently of clouds and mist. So the sun is in the sky, and there's clouds in the sky, and depending upon the density of the clouds, both the heat and the light of the sun, the power of the sun, is blocked by the clouds. Now, above the clouds, the power of the sun isn't blocked at all. It's our experience of the power of the sun is blocked by the clouds or mist. So clouds are compared to anarthas, and mist is compared to ignorance. Because mist is more quickly dissipated than clouds. Those of you from North India, you know what I'm talking about. The morning fog. Just like that. It's gone. It lasts for some time because, without all the scientific explanation, but at night the air is cool, the land is warm, and moisture on the land, and then it gets humidity, and so there's fog. But when the temperature from the light of the sun gets at a certain point, at once, just like snapping your fingers, the fog is gone and the light comes through. Poof. That very metaphor of sunlight, niharam iva bhaskaram, iva, like fog dissipated by the light of the sun, so also the impurities arising from sin are dissipated by bhakti abhas. The verse directly in the Bhagavatam. And to prove it, or to illustrate it, Shukadeva Goswami tells the Ajamila story. As he chanted Abhas, Narayana, and his sins were gone. His anarthas weren't gone, but his sins were gone. So how did he overcome anarthas? By faithful, so this is key, faithful execution of bhakti. That's how Anartha Nivritti works. Not just the behavior, but behavior in a qualitative way. Faithful. And the last point that I'll make, this is again from Jiva Goswami, is bhakti, the power of bhakti is blocked by anarthas. Anartha, say it in reverse. Anartha has the power to block the power of bhakti. Light still comes. And heat still comes. If the heat stopped, we all freeze. It's still day and night, even when there's clouds. There's still some heat, but it's less depending upon the clouds and other factors. So, to get the fullness of the benefit of bhakti, we need to regularly practice. And this is described in this section of Bhakti Sandarbha. Interestingly, Jiva Goswami refers to Patanjali. Patanjali taught the Yoga Sutras, in the process of meditation. In the 6th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, twice Prabhupada quotes Patanjali because he taught the yoga system. And the principles of the yoga system are meant not to become a nirvana body, but a fifth dimension person. It's explicit in Patanjali Sutras. Read that section of the Bhagavad Gita, it's very interesting. Jiva Goswami says the same thing. Patanjali gives this explanation of what is sadhana. sadhana can be shuddha or it can be abhas. We're in the abhas stage. So when sadhana is done, Patanjali says there's 3 elements. And the third one is going to be highlighted. 1, you do it regularly. 2, sustained over a period of time. There's Sanskrit terms. 3rd is where there's some faith that this is going to carry me to where I want to go. And you have an idea where you want to go, and it's not nirvana, it's to swarupena yavastati, to the stage of being engaged in your spiritual identity with the ultimate spiritual reality, the personality of Godhead. And you'll only know that if you have association of devotees. But we're fortunate we have association of devotees. We have Prabhupada's purports to help guide all of that. So therefore, abhyasa, or regular practice, has to have those elements. And it takes some time because of the anarthas in the heart. So, once again, how to get rid of the anarthas in the heart when you're in the stage of sadhana bhakti? Regular, sustained over time, with faith. There's a very beautiful song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's songs, where he's describing in the song, just to keep it really simple, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu requests Lord Nityananda to distribute the pure holy name. And he calls the marketplace of the holy name, literally, Namahata. Hata means marketplace of the holy name. So there's a Bengali word, the closest translation in English is franchise. He gives Nityananda a franchise to distribute the holy name in the marketplace of the holy name, and he can give the pure holy name, but you have to charge a fair price. And the fair price is faith. Then you can give the pure holy name. So if you want, from Lord Nityananda, who is most merciful, he wants to give you. He wants to give us, but he wants to give you the pure holy name. And all you have to do is pay a fair price. Faith. Some. And no, the more the better, but some. And then some you can get more purity, and more faith, more purity, and more faith. So it's a gradual progression, evolving of faith. That's now back to the Anartha Nivritti. Last point. One of our acharyas, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, describes that these 9 stages of bhakti, of which Anartha Nivritti is number 4, then comes 5 through 9. Steadiness, taste, attachment, bhava, and prema. Those are the other 5. They're all simply terms that are describing faith. Faith and faith and faith and faith and faith and faith and faith. Faith in its perfected stage is prema. Faith in not almost perfected is bhava. A little before that is asakti. So it's just stages of faith. So you have to invest some faith, not just behavior. And if you get distracted, anybody get distracted? If you get distracted, you go back and revisit, why am I doing this? You examine, what's the faith that you have in what you're doing? And what is the name? The name is Krishna himself. Abhinatvam nama namino. Why should I have faith? Because the name and the person are the same. Although I'm way down here, I'm really not qualified. Krishna is very kind. He's making himself available for persons like me who aren't so qualified. He makes himself present. I'm not have full realization of that, but I have faith in that. And that by continuing regularly over a period of time with faith, I'll get purification, and eventually I'll get the awakening of Krishna Bhakti further and further and further. The faith element has to be alive. Part of distraction is we're distracted because our faith has gone to some other territory. Due to the mix, that's our state of consciousness. It's not like shame on you, it's just part of the reality of our circumstance. So then we hit the pause button, refocus, okay, what am I doing here? What's my goal? What do I have faith in to reach that goal? Just bring the mind back, as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. From whatever and wherever the mind wanders due to its flickering and unsteady nature, bring the mind back. Chanchalahi mana Krishna, Balavat. Very strong. Bring the mind back. And then it's not just a mechanical bring the mind back, but it's a with faith and devotional bring the mind back. That's the Anartha Nivritti. It's I call it Brahminical work. It's different than doing your homework or going to the office or going to the kitchen and doing some work. It's another kind of work. It's an internal work, Brahminical work. To bring the mind back to who am I? What's the mission of this lifetime in the human form? And revisit it again and again. Make it a well-worn path where you're clear at least what your mission is, what your life mission is. That's Anartha Nivritti. And then gradually anarthas become removed. And removed enough that you're now in a position of steady, and before that it's unsteady. And don't lament when you're unsteady, it's just a stage and keep going. Don't lament that you're unsteady. Recognize it's the path that will take you to steadiness and keep going with faith. And make sure the horse is before the cart, not the other way around. Okay. 7-day seminar in 1 hour. Any discussion? You have a question?
So, the struggle that I face in terms of Anartha Nivritti, or the whole process, is the me factor comes into play. Me, what is in it for me? That keeps popping up very often. What am I getting? So, how do we get rid of that me-centric kind of focus, then make it Krishna-centric focus?
It is. From wherever and whatever and wherever the mind wanders, you bring it back. It takes to do that exercise to bring the mind back. It takes having done something before that, which is, these fundamental questions: who am I? What's really important to me? Not, get an A in your exam by giving the right answer, but what's really important to me? Look inside and connect with that. The why takes care of the what and the how. You can just, if you get lost in the me, you just go back to the why. What's really important? Not, then you can go beyond that one, and go beyond that one, and go beyond that one. Deep, deep inside, what's really important to me? If you don't do that, you'll keep doing this spinning. different way of saying the same thing. It's not exactly the same thing, but it's pretty close. It's, okay, this is a cycle I keep going through again and again and again. And every time I think about the cycle, it doesn't stop the cycle, because by thinking about the cycle, I do it again and again. So let me, pause on that one, because it's not getting me anywhere. Let me go over here and say, what are some strengths? This is something that I learned recently. This a very nice devotee, very skilled devotee, Ikshvaku Prabhu, came from Australia to teach counseling, Vaishnava life counseling, for 3.5 days in Chicago, and then he's going to Dallas, and then the following weekend he's going to central New Jersey, and some devotees from Boston presumably will be going to that. So, counseling, because that's what's going on right now, someone says, oh, I have this problem, and it keeps reoccurring. So his terminology in counseling language is deficit management, or deficit goals, and you try to manage something that's a deficit and it just keeps going around and around. He has a chart. So pause on that one and you go over here. What's a strength? What is it that when I do it, I feel strength? I feel this is something that it's a gift that Krishna has given me. I really like something. Let me go there and do that and focus on doing that for Krishna. So somebody may be, I like to cook in the kitchen. Somebody may be, I like to play mridanga. Somebody it may be, I like Srimad Bhagavatam. Somebody it may be, I like to grow things in the garden. Somebody it may be, whatever it may be. And do that in devotion for Krishna. I like to serve the devotees. Do that and maximize the attentiveness that you give to doing it for Krishna. Not just, the dovetail, I like it, so, it's about me again. Let me do that, focusing on doing it for Krishna. Then you get some strength. And you feel some hope. Wow, I feel, instead of this cycle that keeps going, I'm over here now. I'm feeling hopeful. Then you borrow some strength from over here and apply it to another thing that gives you strength, another thing that gives you strength. Next thing you feel strength, you can borrow some strength and go over there in that deficit territory. And the tide has risen. And the boat has lifted because the tide has risen, and now that deficit thing becomes more manageable because I'm feeling some strength. I'm feeling hopeful. There's some additional resources beyond my own spinning of the wheels. That's a counseling principle. But it connects with a spiritual principle. Maximize that which you have some faith that it's pleasing to Krishna. Now, certainly there's a mix. I feel strength because I like it. It suits my nature. That's the dovetail principle. But take that and develop the bhakti principle. And then, it takes away the what's in it for me, because you're focusing on something you already like and you're thinking, Krishna should be pleased. There's many things that can be said, but there's the starting point. Yes?
Hare Krishna Maharaj. So I was just wondering, for practicing devotees who are in this Bhakti Abhas phase, once in a while, when you're doing a service just for a fleeting moment, is it possible to get a glimpse of
Yes.
like past the clouds?
Yes. Rupa Goswami discusses it in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And it's still an abhas experience. It's not the fullness. It's still a shadow experience of reality with a capital R, or happiness with a capital H, or ananda with, it's an abhas feature of that. But it's Krishna's kindness to give us encouragement to go further, go further, go further.
And it's just hard to know whether the mind played a trick or whether that is real, right?
It could be the mind playing a trick. But behind the mind playing a trick is Krishna also. So just, whether it's A or B, recommit to the process and the connection with Krishna element of life. So my involvement in reconnecting with Krishna, whether it's A or B. Anything else? Yeah.
Two questions, Maharaj. Both the questions are somewhat hinted in this, but more detailed in Anartha Nivritti seminar that you gave. So
Can you hear back there?
No, no.
Huh?
Not over here.
Why don't you come on in?
So first question is about you refer to mist of ignorance and cloud of anarthas,
Yes.
and ignorance being the root cause for sins, which are in.
Yes.
So what is the root cause of anartha?
Rebellion against Krishna.
Isn't that also rooted in ignorance?
Of course. It is the root of ignorance. It's the root cause of material existence.
Second question is related to statement that you have made. How anarthas go from one lifetime to another. And in that seminar you mentioned that anarthas affect the heart, but the sins only affect the
Body and mind.
psychophysical, the body and the mind. So what does it exactly mean by affecting the heart?
What does it exactly mean? I don't like that word. It's like I was going to cheat you unless you use that word exactly.
Because we say that the soul is generally unaffected. It's always in an unadulterated position. And the covering of the soul is essentially the covering of the body and the mind.
Well, yeah, that's the false ego. Don't forget. The conception of self. It's a bit semantical, the play on words or the use of words. But in this case, on the platform of the heart means the soul itself. And the soul itself has free will, and the free will factor is directed away from Krishna. It's similar to the first question you asked. So anarthas stay with redirecting, continuing to direct away from Krishna your free will. Yeah?
Question?
Yes.
So, in two questions actually, and one question is, in the philosophy of Achintya Beda Abedha,
Yeah.
is the Abeda part pretty much the same as the Advaita Vedanta propagated by Adi Shankara, because I hear very similar terms. Like, for example, Adi Shankara has taught the root cause of all existence is avidya, kama, karma.
Yes.
And we pretty much are talking the same thing.
Yes. There's a difference. There's a similarity, strong similarity, and here's a really big difference. The really big difference is that Shankara doesn't permit the existence of anything other than Brahman. And the Abheda part of Achintya Veda, Abheda Tattva is the expansions of Krishna, not only the Shaktis and the Apara and Para Prakriti, they're real, not according to Shankara. There's only one thing. So the Abheda aspect of Shankara is Brahman. And anything else doesn't exist. And then there's expansions of Krishna in addition to his Shaktis, Para and Apara. There's also Krishna's own expansions. And in fact, for that matter, Brahman, chapter 14, text 26, Brahman has as its pratishta aham, Bhagavan. That's not part of Shankara's teaching. It is part of the Abheda feature of Mahaprabhu's teaching. You with me? Okay. You know, similar to Buddhism. Nirvana conception, the Brahman conception and the Nirvana, Shankara's Brahman conception and the Buddhist Nirvana conception are just different nomenclature for the same thing. It's philosophized Brahman, as opposed to what the Bhagavatam teaches. Vedanta, Tattva Vedas, Tattvam Yajnanam Advayam. You know the verse? I'm familiar somewhat. Prabhupada can show you where the verse is and the explanation of it. It's a very important verse. Very important verse. Brahmeti, Paramatmeti, Bhagavan iti Shabdite. So all three are in this Advaya category. That's part of the Abheda feature of Mahaprabhu's teaching. It's right in the Bhagavatam. They're in the Advaya realm, but there's differences. There's plurality in the realm of non-duality. That's not a Shankara notion. And aside from the non-duality realm, there's this Prakriti realm, and that's the Abheda relationship with Krishna also. It's one of his potencies.
So can we assume that Adi Shankara's philosophy stops at the platform of realizing the unity of the Atman to the Paramatman
Yes.
in the qualitative way?
Yes.
And Bhakti starts from there on.
Actually, it's very sophisticated and complicated. But my understanding, I haven't deeply studied, but my understanding is there is no such thing, Atma Paramatma. There's only one thing. The notion of Atma Paramatma is an illusion. Why? Because there's only one thing. And the one thing is Brahman. So those that think there's Atma Paramatma, they're an illusion. They're in this world of duality and thinking diversity. So it stops there. It stops at this nirvana, the cessation of material activity, and what's left is Brahman. Because that's all there is. If you like these kinds of things, detailed analyzing of things, take a look at Prameya Kanda of Tattva Sandarbha and you'll have a blast. Where Jiva Goswami is looking at the evidence, the source of evidence, the Bhagavatam, and he carefully looks at what Buddhists say, a certain brand, Vijnana Vadi or Vada Buddhists, they were prevalent at the time, very similar to Adi Shankar's teaching. They just borrowed terminology and called it Buddhism. They had their own brand. Very similar. Different, but very similar. In terms of what ultimate reality is. They just didn't call it Brahman. But they were denying the existence of a soul. And they have the rationale for it. And Jiva Goswami addresses that. And he also addresses the Shankara teachings that say there's only one thing. There's other places, particularly the next Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha. Actually, it's the third Sandarbha. Paramatma, no, it's the second. Paramatma Sandarbha deals with Super Soul overseeing Upadrashta Prakriti in its different aspects. And it's a real energy. And Super Soul is a real entity that oversees that. That's not the fullness of Bhagavan, it's just the Paramatma feature, but what is Paramatma, and what is Atma, and what is Prakriti, what is Karma, what are the gunas, and how does the whole thing fit together? If you like, it's very precise, very meticulous, and it would be best to study it with a teacher, but even if you just read it with commentary. But just start with this prameya, this, foundational, what's the relationship of things? Which is the question you're asking. Relationship Atma, Paramatma, and does it go that far? That's relationship, Sambandha, Gyan question. Bhagavatam is very clear. If we have prior conceptions, it's really hard to jiggle our prior conceptions to configure with the Bhagavad conception, because some of it fits and some of it doesn't fit. And then you struggle with that which doesn't fit and see how's it going to fit. I've been there. I know the struggle. But so then it's not like, okay, what you're supposed to do is just close your eyes and believe something because somebody said that's what you're supposed to believe. You use your intelligence and try to understand the message in a thoughtful, questioning, not blind acceptance, not blind rejection manner, with the mood that I want to know. That's all.
Maharaj, I'll take a read at this and I'll probably take the help of Ramud for more.
Yeah.
I have more of a social question, not
Okay.
a deep philosophical one.
Okay, fine.
I feel that a lot of like the devotees, assembly of devotees generally, they're supposed to be broad-minded, and the Vaishnava is supposed to be the most broad-minded person, they say. But then I inevitably see the us versus them mentality where, oh, we worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we thump on the Gita, and then we say anybody who worships anybody else, like demigods, and the concept of demigods is actually not there in the Vedas. So
No, it's there in the Vedas.
So let me just finish my question.
Okay.
The question is, Krishna himself says that among the warriors, I am Skanda, for example.
Yeah.
And then we look upon the worshippers of Kartikeya as fools who are worshipping a demigod. And how does this fit? Because demigods themselves are angas of the Supreme Lord.
Okay. If they're very simple, two things. There's immaturity and there's maturity. Without all the elaboration. And the second one is to consider the anga to be the angi. That's the offense. So it's not criticizing. It's when it's when the anga is considered the angi. There's many gods. There's many supremes. That notion, pantheism. It's all one. Yatama tatopat. Whatever you. So.
So that's the only difference.
Well, it's the fundamental basis, and so the objection is to equate that which is not supreme with supreme. Excuse me, but that which is of the supreme is not supreme. So when Krishna says of warriors, I am Skanda, that's one of his vibhutis. That's the chapter, Vibhuti Yoga. So the question that Arjuna asks is, please give the ways in which I can think of you. And that's one of them. The vibhutis. Of all things that are wonderful in this world, Krishna is the source of that. And now he's taking in this by saying, I am. And that's in the abeta sense. But then there's the beta sense. The sunshine is not the sun. Skanda is not Krishna. If we worship Skanda thinking this is the same as worshipping Krishna, well, not only it's not right, but it's, in one sense, it's an offense. If you consider that which is not spiritual to be spiritual, or consider that which is spiritual to be not spiritual, because that's the reverse logic. That which is spiritual is not spiritual. I can worship a tree, a banyan tree. And it's the same as worshipping God, because of trees I'm the banyan tree. It's one of the vibhutis. And respecting vibhutis as representative of the source of those vibhutis, that's recommended. But don't forget the source while respecting that which comes from the source. That's the mistake. And then one can build a religion around worshipping ghosts, because they're from Krishna too. And the cheating of the cheats. We worship cheating. Gambling. Okay. So everything comes from Krishna, and there's a superlative of everything. That superlative, that's a vibhuti of Krishna. And that's a way to help remember Krishna in this world. In the mountains and the Himalayas. So worship the Himalayas, and that's as good as worshiping Krishna. You get the idea.
So the right attitude would be is to see every, not only the ones that are listed in Bhagavad Gita
Yes.
as examples, but
Yes.
like every living being as
Yes.
as a vibhuti of Krishna.
Well, every living being is a part and parcel of Krishna. They're spiritual entities. The bug moving across the floor, the fly flying in the air, and the bird landing on the tree, and that which is spiritual, the tree itself, but the spark of life within. That's spiritual. And respect goes there because of that reason. Now we treat the tree differently than we would treat the bird in the tree, and we treat the bird in the tree differently than we treat the human being, and treat the human being different than one who is elevated in spiritual consciousness. But we respect as the principle for all living entities, because fundamentally they're spiritual entities. We don't equate. Spiritually speaking, abeda. But then it's differences of consciousness, and respect goes according to position of consciousness. It's culture, but like maturity and immaturity. I can take a notion, become dogmatic about it in an immature way, and offend everybody left, right, and sideways. From any position, any teaching, or any faith, not just religious faith, any faith. So respect is a fundamental principle, particular respect to that which is conscious, the soul, and of a spiritual nature, thus spiritual, because matter isn't conscious and soul is conscious, so respect those two. And then proportionate to the evolution of consciousness, appropriately. Beta of beta. Radharani, you have something?
Yeah.
Yes? What's that?
Did Prabhupada really see Krishna?
Did Prabhupada do what?
Really see Krishna?
Really see Krishna.
You want to know the answer that Prabhupada gave? One reporter said, Swamiji, have you seen God? And Prabhupada's answer was, would you believe me if I told you? And the reporter said, yes, Swamiji. And then Prabhupada said, not only I have seen God, but I am always seeing Him. Now do you believe me? Okay, Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Romapada Swami Maharaja.
I have some prasadam here. It was given to me in New Jersey. I'm going to walk around and give some prasadam.